away men, could women on this planet survive to the end of their natural lives?
I feel like if Thanos did like this and all the men disappeared, women would have to then adjust to this new lifestyle.
And they'd be dying.
Women could be able to.
Women would die for the amazing race because
they would adapt. Things may change, but
listen,
they would adapt.
Listen. You can't. Evolution doesn't happen before nature. You don't have the physical strength to manipulate the environment to the extent that it needs to be. That's why you don't do the jobs. See, if Thanos snapped the women away, we couldn't reproduce, but we could live to the end of our lives naturally because we built the infrastructure. See, this whole notion of men and women being equal is poor. We're not equal. The male and female in any gender, in any species, the male is the larger, the more dominant, for the most part in mammals. We don't need you. You need us.
Thanks for tapping in with the Already Canceled Social Club. Go and hit that like, share, subscribe. Keep that algorithm bumping up. We got the Godfather, Kevin Samuels, and we ain't gonna bother him. We gonna let him cook. Let's go.
Well, why do pretty women, especially over 25, feel like they can have it all, especially entrepreneurs and professionals? That was the question.
The question. Okay. Honestly, I feel like most of them can have it all. At least if they're intelligent enough and if they play their cards right. If you're pretty, you're professional, you got your shit together, you're intelligent, what can't you not have in this world?
Well, how old are you?
I'm 36.
Okay. 36. What can't you not have? All.
Well, all is also subjective, right?
No, it's not really. Because see, what I don't do is I don't do this theoretical thing. Like in theory, in theory, you can jump from the ground to the roof under the right conditions. 36 years old. See, the funny thing is, if you ask a man this question, you ask most men this question, can you have it all? Without a beat, they'll say no. So why is it that men answer the question no, and women say, yeah, you can?
Honestly, I can't answer that because I'm not a man. So I don't know why men say this and why women say that. I only know why I say what I say. And I know you were talking about theoretically all, but I think also when I say that all is subjective, what I mean is that when you say, why do women think they can have it all? Technically, when you say all, I'm considering all the things that would personally make me happy.
Okay, well,
right?
Most women want everything. And here's the thing. Let's just say that's the case. But if that held true in reality, then why are women so unhappy? If women can have it all, then why aren't they living that reality?
I think there are some women who are and some women who aren't. I think also
some women, what percentage? I mean, because to say some women, that can mean there's 2 out of 35 out of 3 billion. I'm a very analytical person. So that's kind of blurring and deceptive language. Life is about trade-offs and choices. Trade-offs, compromises, and choices. And in the last 50 years, people began to believe they could have it all. But for the previous recorded history, people understood that you can't. What makes us so different to what women today think you can have it all, and they're not living that reality?
I think also
I'm listening.
We're discussing things from a specific perspective and what society deems as it's all for women and men, specifically through the lens of American society, right?
What all? When women say all, generally what they're talking about is they want a man who's financially successful, loyal, good looking, certain height, certain sexual disposition. He's a poet, he's an actor, he's also an undercover spy and everything else. And no, that's in Disney. You don't get that because you can't have it all. Or it would be no more thing that make no more sense than one person trying to think they can get everything from you.
Well, I also don't believe that you can get everything that you need from one individual. I think that's a fallacy that romanticism has created, that you can be completely satisfied with one person and that person satisfied.
You can't have it all.
No, I don't. Oh, well, from one person. Also, when you say it all, you were speaking about from a romantic partner.
Okay, I don't know how, I don't know if you lean more liberal or more conservative. When most people say they want it all, meaning they want the American dream, a big house, marriage, cars, kids, money, trips, travel, an ideal spouse, great sex, great friends, interesting life, you know, the fantasy. It's a fantasy for a reason.
I agree with you. I agree that is a fantasy. So that's why I say like all is subjective, because for someone who's trying to feed into that specific fantasy, that is actually a fantasy. So if you're describing all as what you're saying, then you can't have it all. That is correct.
Okay. However you define all, you can't have it. Unless all is just you. If all has to do with any other human being, you cannot have it all. Give you a case in point. Halle Berry. For years, arguably one of the most beautiful women on the planet. Miserable as French toast. Why? This woman right here should be able to have it all, right? Beautiful, acclaimed actress, rich, successful, can't keep a man, and complaining about child support and family court. And the list goes on. Why do modern women even the notion of having it all is, due respect, it's a childish notion. Because kids want it all. Human beings, adults are supposed to realize you can't. You have to make choices.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. I guess when I say women can have it all, what I'm saying is that, and why I say it's also subjective, is when I say that I can have it all, I'm meaning the things that I desire that is going to make me happy, that are not necessarily what the American dream is, or what someone else may deem as something that is necessary for me.
So you can.
So
do you have those now? Do you have that now?
Huh?
Do you have that now?
Do I have that now? No, I don't have that now. I'm working towards those things now.
Do you want to be married, everyone?
I'm not sure if marriage is for me or not yet.
You want kids?
I'm not sure if children is for me or not yet. I think for me, if I meet someone that I fall in love with and we both decide that we want to get married, then I'll get married. But is it the end all be all if I don't ever get married? Not necessarily.
Hold on. Marriage is one thing, but kids, there's a yet component. There's a time component.
There is a time component.
So if you decide that you don't want them now, but you meet Prince Charming and you are so inclined to want to reproduce and you're 45, can you still have them?
I can't have my own children. I can adopt. I can surrogate if I decide to.
That's a compromise.
There is a compromise, specifically, yes. If I decide at that age to then have children, as I'm approaching that age, that would be
most of the women that come to my show are wanting relationship, i.e., marriage, children, suburban kind of lifestyle. That's what most women want. So as the typical woman that comes to my show, they're not saying whether or not I want to be married. They want to be married. They want kids. They want to not have to work to pay significant bills after they're pregnant. They want a man who's earning a certain amount of income to facilitate a certain kind of lifestyle. But are they fit for that? The kind of men they want, what do they want from women, and do those women fit the bill? See, if you watch my show, if you go back and watch, for 9 months, I hold interviews and talk night after night after night. And consistently, 99.99999% of women tend to want the same thing, but they're not getting it.
Yes. I think personally, and this is personally for me, I think that a lot of the things that women want, they don't realize that it may not be necessarily that they particularly want that, or those things are going to fulfill them in the way that they perceive it to fulfill them. And they desperately want these things to fulfill a void that they themselves have not filled. So that's what I personally feel. That's why I say, I don't know if marriage is for me yet. And I don't know if children is for me yet until I find an individual that I would want to have children with, or that I would want to get married with. If we were to get to that point, I can make that decision. But if I were to take marriage and children and then decide that these are the things that I need in order to have happiness in life, and then if that I never fulfill those things, then I'll never be happy. Instead of just seeking happiness in other places. But I find that society puts us such a heavy weight on marriage and children for women.
Society doesn't put a heavy weight on. It's our biological imperative. We're meant to be on this planet to reproduce.
To reproduce, yes, but not necessarily get married.
Okay, and the best way of raising a child. The best way of raising a child is in a two-parent household for the best potential outcome. So, but a lot of things you said, ma'am, sound very modernist, womanist, feminist notion. That if I choose, that implies that what you're saying implies that you just can go pick a man. A man has to choose you to be a wife. It's not you just falling in love with him. He has to decide if he wants to marry you. We control access to marriage. You control access to sex and birth. We decide that.
I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that. And it may just be because I am modernist and I am feminist and all these things. I feel like two individuals choose each other.
And the part of the problem, and if you study any civilization, when they lean towards modernist, feminist, they tend to decline. Because the first thing that falls apart is the fundamental building block of a society, which is family. We control access. Who pursues in a relationship, men or women?
Well, in American society, men do.
Not American society, worldwide.
Pretty much, men do. There are certain.
Okay, ma'am. In the animal kingdom. So this is where this feminist stuff starts to fall apart, because you can only be feminist in the first world country. We've civilized the world in general to where you can have all these flighty notions that don't work in a state of nature. Who pursues in a relationship sense? It's men. It doesn't have to be 100% or absolute value. Those are deflections. You know what I'm saying? Men typically pursue in a relationship. We pursue. We ask. You can choose to decline or accept. If you wanted to get married, and if no man wanted to marry you, you can't get married.
That's true. Yes.
So, what does feminism mean to you?
Feminism.
What's the purpose of what does it mean to you?
Honestly, I wouldn't even describe myself as a feminist. I use the word because you used it to describe me, and it is. I tend to lean towards those things. So to define feminism for me is irrelevant. But what I will say is that
feminism,
in terms of what I feel, in terms of how I feel I am as a woman, I feel like women and men are both human beings. We just tend to be different genders. We have different essences. We are very much yin and yang in the natural sense. But because we live in a society where we've evolved mentally.
So let me ask you some very simple questions. If Thanos snapped away men, could women on this planet survive to the end of their natural lives? Could they maintain the infrastructure? Could the infrastructure that's in place now, could women maintain the infrastructure to where the majority of women survive to the end of their natural lives?
I feel like if Thanos did like this and all the men disappeared, women would have to then adjust to this new lifestyle.
And they'd be dying.
Women could be able to
Women would die for the amazing race because
they would adapt. Things may change,
no,
but
listen,
they would adapt.
Listen. You can't. Evolution doesn't happen before nature. You don't have the physical strength to manipulate the environment to the extent that it needs to be. That's why you don't do the jobs. See, if Thanos snapped the women away, we couldn't reproduce, but we could live to the end of our lives naturally because we built the infrastructure. See, this whole notion of men and women being equal is poor. We're not equal. The male and female in any gender, in any species, the male is the larger, the more dominant, for the most part in mammals. We don't need you. You need us.
I think we need each other.
No, we need each other for reproduction, not survival. I've had this conversation over and over. You put a woman in nature by herself, she will die. My hand strength, the typical female's hand strength is 17 times less than a man. You can't manipulate the environment. It's just not possible. Physically not possible. Men can.
Yes, and I understand that, but there are other ways to live. I would not necessarily need the amount of strength that a man has to survive. There are other ways to survive. You will adapt. You learn how to eat different foods. You learn how to plant. You know how to grow different types of foods.
But
as long
planting
as
requires time. All the stuff you're talking about requires time. And all the stuff you're talking about also requires protection. You need the protection that men have provided in the society, at least they allow this stuff to happen. You be out on the prairie planting, and if a man decides he wants to come along and take it, what you gonna do?
You just said that men are gone. You said Thanos said gone.
Okay, but we've gone through two different things.
Okay.
But even as this, man, okay. Feminism at its core was not about equality. It was about choice. If a woman wanted to be a housewife, that was supposed to be fine. If she wanted to work, it was fine. Now we have this notion that we're equals. We're not equals. We're not equals in any sense of the imagination. There is a definite distinction. Women need the group. Just like lionesses need the group to survive and hunt. The lion needs that. He can hunt on his own. Men can manipulate an environment by themselves and live. Women cannot. A singular female can't. And see, the fact
but
that
a woman in a pride or a commune of women can.
To a certain degree. Just like a pride of lionesses can hunt effectively, but they cannot effectively take down the largest prey. Not wildebeest, water buffaloes, hippopotamuses, they can't. It requires the lion. They can't. Giraffe, they can't do it.
But they can take down enough prey to survive.
But they can't keep it. The hyenas take it away.
But this is what I'm saying is that I understand what you're saying. In terms of like in the larger sense.
But still, you're still talking about.
But there have been groups in society that were women.
But the thing is, ma'am, okay, listen. The reason a singular woman needs a group, and even a group of women is still insufficient to what men can do. And this is the point. This really is not even shouldn't even be a conversation, except in this notion that we're trying to make men and women be equal. We are not equal. If you take away all society, all government, Book of Eli kind of stuff. You're out in the wilderness, figuring out how to hunt and grow, all that other kind of stuff. That's fine. No one, but then a roaming band of men come by. If they decide they want what you have, including you, what can you do to stop them?
If the women were trained to fight, then would they not be able to fight?
No.
You get what I'm saying? Like they have been women warriors.
Not effectively. No. Again, and what you say, women warriors. So I have 3 black belts, and I would tell you some of the best female fighters pale in comparison to even intermediates. You're physically weaker. The only way women can survive is by possibly projectile weapons if we have ammunition. But no, you're just out here. Hunter-gatherer society. You know the answer. It just, modern women tend to not like the fact that you are not equal to men physically.
I agree with you. Women are not equal to men physically, but war is not just about physicality. It's about tactic. It's about intelligence. It's about using other things. You can win a war with not just physicality.
Okay, show me where women have been able to survive in a group by themselves. In any time. Where?
I can't like quote off. I don't have like a book, but there have been female societies.
No, they don't, ma'am. Because what you're saying is, even you're talking about war. All right, you know what? You got all the strategy in the world. Ooh, you still gotta sleep. And see, this is what I mean. Modern women really have a problem admitting, damn, the reason I can have these modern women's notions is because men have civilized the world in general and have built a structure of government and security to where you can be right where you are, feeling safe to espouse these things. But if the men stop protecting that society, no more police, no more fire, no more government, none of that. What? You guys are out here.
All right, let me pose a certain argument as well. I also find that a lot of the violence and animosity that exists in the world came from a man.
And
a lot of matriarchal societies have less war and have more.
No, they don't. That's not true.
Yeah, they do.
No, okay, first of all, the wars, most conflict comes as a result of women. Most wars in the
because of men, though.
Okay, name me the matriarchal society that you're talking about that existed and thrived. Name me a matriarchal society that existed and thrived.
Definitely have, at some point in my life, looked this up, because I was having this argument a couple of years ago, maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago, with my friend Luz and her husband, and we were discussing this, and we were looking up different examples where we saw that a lot of matriarchal societies, specifically like in Africa,
societies where?
In Africa, where they were they were much more communal.
Again, this is that warrior.
They were much more warrior societies, and there was less war.
Ma'am, less war does not mean.
What I find is that
what it comes right down to is less war, no war. Without men, without men, you guys would perish quickly. You need men, because even in those matriarchal societies where women, they still had men to manipulate the environment. Why is it so hard for women to just admit that we are different, and we're different for a reason?
I agree that we are different.
But there's an order.
I agree we are different, but I don't think that what I am disagreeing with you with is that I don't think that we can't not survive without men. At least to the end. Like, for instance, if men were to disappear today, I'll figure out how to survive to the end of my days. Particularly, I'm going to speak for myself. I will end up figuring it out.
Okay,
but
so
for
you say
to say that, men will be able to survive to the end of their days, and women can, I don't agree with that necessarily.
As a woman, you say that. What state do you live in?
I live in California.
All right. Have you ever lived in your city where they have had the power out for 2 weeks?
No.
Okay. Have you ever lived in a state where okay, so you've never experienced massive power outage. Have you ever lived in a place where the water was off for a week?
No.
Okay, ma'am, I hate to break it to you. How long do you live without water? Fresh water, how long does a human being live?
I think it's 72 hours without water.
3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, 30 days without food or something, or 3 months without food.
Yeah, 30 days without food, I think 3 days without water.
So the point is, you want to see a real live example without all the theory? When you leave, go to Amazon Prime and go look up Bear Grylls. The name is Bear Grylls. Grylls, the island. Season 2, where he drops a group of men on an island in the middle of the Pacific, and they have to survive for 6 weeks. That's season 1. Season 2, they expanded it. They dropped women on one island, men on another. Go watch what happened to the women. On the end of day 1, men that got from one side of the beach to another, established the beachhead, started clearing out of shelter, was making water, and they're already hunted. Women had pushed in 300 yards into the jungle, gotten lost. Half of the group went this way, And there are times in the production that if the production crew had not stepped in, women would have died. They came out and said that they manipulated the environment to allow women to survive. Man, it's just not your role to live by yourself. You say you could survive. Okay, let's say you can, but all it takes is an injury. Then what all that can-do spirit, what about the other women? You break an ankle. I've broken an ankle. You ever break a bone?
Yes.
Then what? See, men can still get stuff done because even with a broken bone, men can manipulate the environment. Something happens to that roof in the building you're on. Who possesses the strength to patch it, even if you had the materials? You see what I mean?
I see what you're saying. What I find is that even everything that you're saying, a certain amount of knowledge on both ends can a knowledge and a adaptation is what it is.
You can have all of the knowledge in the world. If you cannot lift the items, there's no knowledge. If you cannot create a fulcrum, there is, see, that's what I mean. Men have built the world so well to where you ladies don't even realize how it was built. You just use it. And that's the point. We do that because, you know what? Women like comfort. Women like running water. Women like heating air and lights, because if we can make you comfortable, we can have sex. That's why we did all this. But now the social contract is such that women have basically told men, okay, thank you for civilizing the world in general, basically ending war, because in my lifetime, there's not been any world wars. There's not been any real wars. Outside of COVID, we have not had any plagues. Infant mortality is, if you got pregnant, you just automatically assume you're going to have a healthy baby, instead of losing 30% in childbirth, dying in childbirth. And then we have done such a good job to where women, instead of saying, wow, I have all these freedoms and choices, to the point now women turning to men and saying, well, I can do this without you. And men are looking at you like, are you out of your mind?